Alright guys, so it seems that any conversation about hunting and or manliness would be incomplete without a little bit of car stuff. I know every guy's not a car guy, and that's totally cool. It's just something that has deeply interested me over the years, and on the more practical side is just super necessary. I mean, if you're going to be hunting, driving down some sort of mild dirt road to the just utmost insane four-wheel drive only kind of road, knowing a thing or two about what's going on with your car and how to fix it if you're stuck out there is huge. So today we're going to fix something that I broke this weekend while out scouting. So this weekend we took a little family trip up north. We were celebrating my son's birthday, hanging out with family, but really it was an excuse for me to get some last minute scouting in before elk season. But we only took my wife's car, the great grocery getter kid hauler here. And usually if I'm going hunting, I bring my Jeep. It's more equipped for whatever I'm going to throw at it. But for this particular trip, I just needed to go a few miles down a relatively decent dirt road. This thing should be fine. 2500 series Suburban. It's only two-wheel drive, but that's all you need. However, scary moment happened when I was coming out of the woods at dawn, basically. And as I'm walking down the dirt road back to my truck, I noticed the little drips, this little trail of oil down the road. And I thought, man, somebody scraped an oil pan, someone's in some trouble down here. And as I walked up to this truck, my heart sank when I realized it was me. The trail just followed right on in to where my truck was parked, where this thing was parked. So I started thinking the worst, like, oh no, I busted the oil pan, the transmission line blew, thinking that this is catastrophic. I know I only have basic tools in the back, like just going through all the, can a tow truck get here? Who's going to give me supplies? What am I going to do? Anyway, I searched all over, checked all the fluids, everything major was checking out. Finally came around to the back and found the culprit, which was not nearly as bad as I thought it could be. It was just a blown shock. Much worse things in the world. The car's still totally drivable. In fact, we drove it 2 hours back home from Flagstaff to Phoenix without a problem. So now it's a couple days later, finally got the parts in, and I'm going to replace this for my wife. You know, I've always considered it part of my duty as a husband and a father to make sure my wife's car is taken care of. My car, I try to take great care of, but I'm definitely more likely to let some things slide, to slap something together with duct tape until I get around to fixing it the right way. But when it comes to my wife's car that she's going to drive every day, that my kids are going to be in, I feel like it's part of my responsibility as their primary protector to make sure they have solid, reliable, safe transportation. So that's why I'm getting right on the shock. If it was on my Jeep, I'd probably drive around with it a little bouncier than usual for a while until I got ready to fix it. Anyway, as I've said, I don't think everybody needs to be a car guy. I'm not going to talk about engines and all sorts of stuff, but I think knowing a few basic things, some basic maintenance, some basic repair stuff is huge. And I know that as I've gone through adulthood and learned more and more about cars, there's just few things I have found like the satisfaction of tearing into something yourself, making some mistakes along the way, making a couple trips to the parts store, but in the end, the car is repaired, it's running the way it should. There's just, again, something kind of primal that I think speaks to us as men to dig into something mechanical and fix it. So today, I'm going to run through how to replace these shocks. There's some differences from different cars, but this basic concept is what you'll find on most cars that you would probably be driving to head out into the woods. So here we go.
So this is the culprit right here. All of that fluid and staining and shininess is not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to look like that one over there. So the seals inside this thing broke, let all the fluid out, and so now it doesn't absorb the shock like it's supposed to. But to replace it is super simple. You don't even have to jack the car up. These giant leaf springs here are holding everything in place. This just makes the ride more comfortable. And there's this giant bolt. Undo that nut, pull the thing out, and then up at the top, you'll see two smaller bolts that are on a little shaft that kind of runs through the eyelet of that shock. So that's it, 3 bolts, the thing comes out, and you put the new one back in. Now, I'm going to use air tools because I have them, and it's going to make it so much faster and easier. But if you have a basic socket set, maybe a extra pipe or something you can put on the end of that wrench to get some more leverage if it's really frozen on there, you can do this job.
Real simple. This is just going to speed things up.
So like I said, just take these 2 bolts out of the top. Alright, now hopefully you can see this better from this side. I've got my jack right here under the shock. It's not really putting any pressure up on it, it's just gonna catch it, because as soon as this bolt comes out, the pressure of the shock is gonna want to come down, and it'll actually bind that bolt up in place, but the jack will catch it, and I can just lower the jack. It'll let the shock elongate, and then we can remove it. Alright, and now we'll lower the shock. And just like that. If you don't have one of these big jacks, the simple scissor or bottle or whatever kind of jack came with your car for changing a flat tire, that'll work just as well. Alright, you'll notice the new shock is significantly shorter than the old one. Simply because the old one is in full extension. This one has that little strap wrapped around it out of the box to hold it compressed. You do not want to remove that until you actually have the shock most of the way installed, so it's not going to fully extend. Because once it fully extends, it is going to be a bear to try to compress back down if it's not in position. Alright, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so now I've got the main bolt down on the bottom, just loosely threaded on there. Now I'm gonna line the top, point the top of the shock at where it's supposed to go, and I'm gonna clip this, and it's going to extend up into its home. It's not super fast or powerful, so it's not really a big deal, just kind of guide it on home. And it'll just kind of rest there until you can throw those bolts in. Alright, then just gonna zip them on home. So here's what just happened there. The nut from the other shock was still in the socket, and I didn't realize it. So I just threaded them both on. That's what it should look like.
So there you have it. 6 bolts and about an hour of your life, and you can replace a set of shocks. You'll notice that only one of them was broken, but I replaced both. Shocks are like a lot of things on an axle, tires, brakes, where if one's getting replaced, everybody recommends you really do both sides to keep things leveled out and even. So that's what I did here. I'm sure some of you are the highly technical type that want to know exactly how tight to make all the bolts when you put it all back together. If you're that guy and you have a torque wrench, I'm sure you can look up torque specs and get it done. For me, over the years, when it comes to suspension components, I've always just gone by the really friggin' tight methodology and just cranked it down as much as I could. If you're using air tools, just zap down on those and you're sure to get it tight enough. It's not going to go anywhere. But that's it. So if you get stuck on the side of the road or just want to tackle something new when your car starts to have that kind of bounce over hills, it's not absorbing the shock like it's supposed to, you can tackle this and be surprised at how easy it is. YouTube's full of tutorials if you get stuck on anything. And that's it. There is now a storm rolling through, and it was light when I started this and dark now, so I'm going to go in and help put my kids to bed. And yeah, so if you break something on your wife's car, be the one to fix it, and she won't really care.